From the headquarters of FtS English in Quito, Ecuador, I am Estefanía Bravo. This is From the South. Guatemala is ending the UN-backed Anti-Corruption Commission 8 months earlier than expected. The International Commission Against Impunity sought to prosecute President Jimmy Morales over illegal financing allegations during his election campaign 2 years earlier. The investigations also targeted members of the president's family. In August, Morales announced he would not renew the body's mandate due to expire on September of this year. Foreign Minister Sandra Jovel announced the latest decision after meeting with UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres in New York. Venezuela has reached an investment deal with the French company Marel and Prom aimed at transforming the state oil company PDVSA. In a press conference, President Nicolás Maduro spoke about the deal and how this will benefit the country.
We are still defining the details of the investment. Venezuela needs to know we are working full-time to transform PDVSA. We are looking into financial and technological capacity of this company that is known worldwide and has a lot of experience. Their representatives know that in Venezuela they will find the legal security they need.
President Maduro is set to take office for the second time on January 10th. Our correspondent in Venezuela, Luis Tavera, has the details.
3 days before Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro is sworn in by the Supreme Court for his second term in office, he continues to receive international support, with several governments standing behind him. During a speech, President Maduro said, despite some rejections, like the ones by the Lima Group, no one will stop the people of Venezuela from welcoming the president they voted for. He also said he will continue developing the country's economic and social policies, despite attempts by these groups and nations to hide the achievements made during 20 years of the Bolivarian Revolution. The Foreign Ministry also condemned this behavior, especially by the Colombian government. Venezuelan Foreign Minister Jorge Arreaza said the Colombian government should not interfere in Venezuela's internal affairs. Meanwhile, Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel has supported the government of Nicolás Maduro through social media, saying the people are the ones who have to decide about a nation's internal affairs, as all countries in the world do. Maduro's political party is getting ready for the inauguration next Thursday, the 10th of January.
And Venezuelan Foreign Minister Jorge Arreaza has met with the Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, Gaston Brown, to discuss their bilateral ties under the framework of ALBA and Petrocaribe. Earlier, my colleague Suyini Gray spoke to our correspondent Gemma Handy to get the latest details.
So what can you tell us more about the meeting between Prime Minister Brown and the Venezuelan Foreign Minister?
Well, the meeting took place this morning. It lasted about 30 minutes, told. It held up the Foreign Minister's request. We know he's been here many times before, of course. The OAS resolution, as you mentioned, it did arrive. Antigua and Barbuda's Prime Minister Gaston Brown reiterated that long stance that the Twin Island nation will not support any action that goes against Venezuela. If there's any resolution that condemns Venezuela, Antigua and Barbuda will either abstain or vote against it. Thing that came up, they also discussed the inauguration of President Maduro, of course, this Thursday. The Prime Minister said he would like to be there. If not, then his Foreign Minister will represent him. Of course, a welcome show of support in light of the stance of the United States, Canada and a number of other countries that we've seen recently, who, of course, have been demanding that Maduro hands over power.
Now, Gemma, Antigua and Barbuda has been very supportive of Venezuela, while two members of CARICOM, Guyana and St. Lucia, which are also part of the Lima Group, says it will not recognize President Maduro's second term. Do you think that's likely to generate tension within CARICOM?
Well, it's an interesting question. At the General Assembly vote in June last year, CARICOM countries were very divided on the question of their support for Venezuela. It's doubtful individual countries will have altered that stance. Many small islands, of course, have been very grateful recipients of discounted oil from Venezuela and the accompanying social programs too. They won't be turning their back on a friend now. Some of the larger countries have previously voted in favour of suspending Venezuela from the OAS. Barbados, Guyana, Jamaica. And equally to this region, they're very reluctant to be seen to be acting against the United States. That, of course, is where most of the tourism dollars come from. Likely many will abstain once again. Regarding conflict, there's generally an understanding among the Caribbean nations. They enjoy very close ties. I'd say it's unlikely to cause a lasting rift.
84% of the ballots have been printed in El Salvador, 1 month ahead of the presidential election. 80,000 members trained in supervising the voting process and ballot counting were sworn in. 7 political parties are set to participate in February's vote. This will be the 6th presidential election since the signing of the 1982 peace agreement, which ended 12 years of civil war.
A practice run for processing and distributing electoral results was deemed successful by El Salvador's Supreme Electoral Court, despite a fire that happened on Saturday in one of the halls where some of the voting equipment was being kept and ended up being destroyed.
Many scanners were damaged in the fire. We had to implement our contingency plan, and luckily we had 1,800 scanners thanks to a donation from Korea. There are 1,595 voting centers, so we are providing them with new scanners in addition to the other scanners that were rescued.
In this test run, the Electoral Court achieved 99.8% of recorded ballots by closing time. Specialists explain the security measures of this system.
The technology that we are using to protect ourselves against any issue is the latest available.
Also, a group of observers from the European Union have already sent out their first members to the 14 districts of the country to oversee the electoral process.
Long-term observers have been placed across the country. We are going to be covering each district of El Salvador, while short-term observers are going along with us. There are another 28 observers that will be arriving a few days before the elections to strengthen our presence in the territory.
A general practice run is planned for January 20th, and it will be the last before Election Day on February 3rd. Meanwhile, political parties continue their campaigns, looking to reach out to the population.
Several central states in Mexico are facing fuel shortages as the government tries to combat fuel theft. Gas stations in the city of Guadalajara were closed on Sunday, including those operated by state oil company Pemex. The shortages follow the closure of a pipeline in the central state of Guanajuato and the use of tankers to transport fuel. President Andrés Manuel López Obrador has vowed to return law and order to the nation.
How is it petty theft if we're talking about the robbery of more than 1,000 pipelines a day, of 3,962 gallons from each pipeline? How did they distribute all that stolen gasoline? Well, there was an attitude of a total complicity on the part of Pemex. Now we have a rule of law. There is no more rule of the crooked. So now they are pressuring us, thinking that they'll beat us. They don't want to arm wrestle with us, because the law will win out and justice will win out.
And the Mexican president has also announced plans to create a new free economic zone stretching along its entire border with the United States. Our correspondent Pablo Perez brings us the details.
On the occasion of his visit to the border town of Tijuana, Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador stressed the importance of the creation of a free economic zone. He said the planned zone between the U.S. and Mexico would be one of the biggest free economic zones on the American continent. It would include various economic measures such as the reduction of value-added tax and of the income tax, and also a substantial increase of the minimum wage. He added that for those who are against these measures, the initial economic loss would be compensated in the long term as the businesses start to prosper. This free economic zone will stretch from the U.S. state of California and the Mexican state of Baja California at the Pacific coast, to the U.S. state of Texas and the Mexican state of Tamaulipas at the Gulf of Mexico.
We'll be back very soon. Stay with us. Welcome back. Another social leader has been killed in Colombia. So far in 2019, 5 campesino social leaders have been murdered. Our correspondent José Manuel Jiménez has the details.
The death of another social leader has been confirmed in Colombia. Her name was Maritza Quiroz. She was a campesino and a member of the Armed Conflict Victims Association of the Santa Marta region in the department of Magdalena. Over the last couple of days, we informed of the murder of other 4 social leaders across the country. And now, there are 5 leaders murdered in just the first days of the year of 2019. The National Indigenous Organization of Colombia announced that since August 7, under the administration of President Iván Duque, attacks against indigenous people have gotten worse. According to statistics, 36 indigenous leaders have been killed. Many organizations estimate that over 400 social leaders have been murdered since the Colombian government signed the Havana Peace Accords with the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia. Despite the alarming figures, the national government has taken no firm measures to protect social leaders and ensure their safety. They also have failed to combat the paramilitary structure responsible for these crimes. Social, political, indigenous, and human rights organizations and activists all across Colombia are demanding justice, as well as a thorough investigation of the events that have taken place and an end to violence in Colombia.
Classes have begun at Ross University School of Medicine's new Barbados campus, which officially opened over the weekend. During her feature address, Barbados Prime Minister Mia Mottley encouraged Barbadians to embrace the more than 1,000 students like their own. In August of last year, Dominica's Prime Minister announced that Ross University would be leaving the Eastern Caribbean nation after 40 years.
When asked, would you give up this building within 6 months to become the home of a major university, my government took the risk. When asked, could we see ourselves not just facilitating the education, but the accommodation and transport and living of an additional 1,500 to 1,600 people in this country, not a year from now, but within less than 6 months from July, we said yes, and we took the risk. And we took the risk because we believe that within us lay the virtue of building partnerships.
Guyana is mourning the loss of one of its veteran diplomats, Dr. Odin Ishmael. He died at his Florida home over the weekend. He was 70 years old. Dr. Ishmael served as Guyana's ambassador to Kuwait. He was also appointed non-resident ambassador to Qatar, a recipient of the Cacique Crown of Honor. He also served as Guyana's ambassador to the U.S. and later to Venezuela. Trinidad and Tobago's Prime Minister is warning of job loss and business sector struggles in the year ahead. Dr. Keith Rowley tore into the previous government, saying it had wasted nearly $5 billion in cash, and for that, his administration's hands were tied. He added that the country is well on its way to meeting the IMF's growth projection for 2019. In Ercilla, a Mapuche territory in Chile, several municipalities continue occupied. Our correspondent Paula Drachnik has the details.
Land grabbing continues in various Guayamapu municipalities and specifically in the Mapuche territories of Ercilla and Coyipulli. The Mapuche people have been pushed to the brink, so in a bid to reclaim their territory, community leaders have taken over this municipal building since December 27th. Last Friday, the government was moving towards evicting the indigenous heads from the building via a judicial order or with Ercilla mayor's authorization. However, 11 days into the occupation, the government is now seeking a more peaceful resolution. But the Mapuche people are keeping close watch as the situation unfolds. They say the Ercilla mayor has given information against the indigenous community to the Interior Ministry. The mayor, in turn, is now extending the olive branch to the Mapuche, as he now seeks a more peaceful resolution to the impasse. And so the Mapuche press on with their peaceful action to reclaim their lands. There were, however, some confrontations in Cuyipulli arising out of the Mapuche occupation. The indigenous community there has also called for justice for the murder of two of their own, Camilo Catrillanca and Brandon Hernandez.
We thank Paola for that report. More stories now. Uruguay paid tribute to the three wise men with a party known as the Cause of San Baltasar. This colorful party is held ahead of Carnival and of the yearly Candombe parade. Thousands took part in the festivities, which is one of the most important celebrations for Afro-Uruguayans.
For all of us, the Candomberos, this is one of the biggest parties. It's an Uruguayan popular party. I think it must be the largest free popular party in the country. Today, we opened with the three kings giving gifts to all children. We are very excited that we achieved this.
And in Mexico, underprivileged children were able to join Three Kings Day as well. Let's find out more.
In the early hours, these young Mexicans from the All You Need Is Love charity meet in Mexico City to give out toys to those children who didn't receive a visit from Melchor, Gaspar and Baltasar.
Toys donated by volunteers, by people. Our goal is to bring a little joy to children on the streets.
Over the last few weeks, they have spent time collecting new and used toys. All go through a quality control inspection to ensure they are fit for their new owners.
We have a toy hospital where we repair toys before they are gifted.
Walking through the streets, they look out for indigenous, migrant or homeless children to receive toy.
Well, there are people that don't have anything, so I want to spread a little of happiness to children.
All You Need Is Love have been organizing giveaways and community projects for over 6 years. They believe that even the smallest gesture can make all the difference.
Helping each other is what I think will help us be a little bit more united to move forward in our society.
In Mexico City, more than 14,000 children live on the streets. According to these young people, making a difference requires a coordinated effort by government and social organizations.
We'll be back very soon. Stay with us. Welcome back. Ethiopia and Eritrea have formally opened a border crossing between the two countries. The ceremony was graced by Ethiopian Prime Minister and the Eritrean President. This shows an effort to restore ties, signing a peace agreement last year. The agreement is an attempt to end 2 decades of hostility, which simmered on after the country's brutal war between 1998 and 2000, which left 80,000 people dead. The government of Gabon has announced the deaths of 2 soldiers involved in Monday's attempted coup. A 5th military officer has also been apprehended after initially eluding the security officers deployed to arrest him. Earlier, the 5 officers stormed the state radio station and asked the people to oust ailing President Ali Bongo. The Bongo family has ruled Gabon for over 5 decades.
Sitôt informé de la situation.
As soon as the government was informed of the situation, measures were put into place efficiently to neutralize and arrest members of the political group. During this operation, 2 insurgents died. The others, including Lieutenant Ondo Obiang Kelly, were arrested and then presented to the Prosecutor General.
There has been increased military presence on the streets of Libreville following the attempted coup. The Republican Guard was deployed around the radio station, blocking access to the area. A government spokesperson says security forces will remain there for the following days. On February 6th, the world commemorated the Day Against Female Genital Mutilation, a practice that affects close to 3 million girls every year. Our correspondent in Kenya tells us more about this tradition, which affects so many Kenyan women.
Jane Boak was submitted to genital mutilation when she was a little girl. At 15, she got married so her brother could continue studying. However, she escaped from her husband to prevent her 2 daughters from being mutilated as well. She then created this social organization.
Some people mutilate girls immediately after they are born. Why do you submit a child to that trauma? Just because of what you want the baby to be in the future? I think the law doesn't have any impact on women. On the contrary, it has created more problems. This culture has kept women in a position where they cannot speak for themselves. They are forced to get married. They give birth when they are still very young. And all this contributes to the increase of poverty in Korea.
A solution can come through the education and awareness for women. But those who escape from the clause of mutilation do not obtain any support.
I decided to give them shelter at my own house because they have nowhere else to go.
The law does not even provide aid when parents are absent and the girls are alone. That is the case of Jennifer Gaiety. Her mother left her husband so she can continue studying.
In my opinion, female genital mutilation does not help at all. The Korea community should leave this practice behind. What can help us is to go to school, get a degree, and pick the job we like.
When we talked with Jennifer's mother, she told us her husband's family kicked her out of her home after refusing to have her daughter submitted to mutilation. They told her she was bringing a curse to the family and she could not stay with them. She rented a room and now she's struggling with different low-paying jobs. She sells water, she washes clothes for other people, she cleans houses in order to cover the basic needs of her daughters.
The girls in this town only think about having babies and they end up dropping out school.
We really need to empower women to make their own life decisions. There is no other way. If you think your parents can make decisions for yourself and to give you the life you want, that is not possible in this culture.
The French government wants to draft a new law to punish undeclared protests. The new measures aim at toughening punishment for people who participate in riots and clamp down on the wearing of masks at demonstrations. This comes in the wake of anti-government protests which have rocked France for the past 7 weeks. It is believed the tough punishment is meant to deter people from participating in the Yellow Vest protests around the country.
The government is in favor of our law being amended. This will allow us to punish those who do not respect this obligation to declare their participation in protests. Today, this is fine. Tomorrow, it must become a crime. We need to make sure it is the civil responsibility of the rioters to make the reparations and not the taxpayers to pay for the damages done.
At least 6 crew members of a cargo ship have died after their vessel capsized in the Black Sea of the coast of Turkey. Rescue operation with helicopters rushed to the scene, about 80 kilometers off the Turkish coast. The ship had a total of 13 crew members on board, mostly Ukrainian citizens. The ship was operated under the Panamanian flag and was reportedly transporting coal from Russia to Turkey. The Ukrainian Orthodox Church has gained its independence from the Russian Orthodox Church it had been tied to since the year 1686. There are concerns that the split will trigger tensions between both nations, since Russia annexed the region of Crimea in 2014.
The Ukrainian Orthodox Church has finally broken free from the Bishop of Moscow, the leader of the Russian Orthodox Church, known as the Patriarch of Moscow. The decree to release the Ukrainian church was signed in Istanbul, where celebrations took place soon after.
Today is a sacred day for all of us. The decree signed by our spiritual leader gives us the freedom we sought. The document will be taken to Kiev and put on display, so that the Ukrainian believers can see it.
Istanbul hosted the event because the Orthodox Church is symbolically led by the Constantinople Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew I. Among those present were the Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko and the former President Viktor Yushchenko.
We have an independent state and an independent church. They will never mix.
Relations between the Russian Orthodox Church and the Patriarchate of Constantinople will most likely be tense from now on, while Russia and Ukraine are likely to maintain their political dispute.
Maybe Russia will try to relate, but what it's done is done. This cannot be changed, so Russia cannot really do anything.
The rupture is seen as a political move, if only symbolically. From now on, the man in charge of Ukraine's Orthodox Church will be the Metropolitan of Kiev, Epiphanios I. In the end, the creation of Ukraine's new Orthodox Church is yet another issue in the fraught relationship between Russia and Ukraine.
And with that story, we've come to the end of this news brief. These and other stories, as always, find them on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media. We're on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. For Telesur English, I am Estefania Bravo. Thank you for watching.